This program is part of the Scene Projects Podcast Network. Welcome into the Get Better Together Project with your hosts, Bubba and Sarah. This show's all about being honest with your friends and yourself. Listen to our weekly check-ins and become part of our community. That's how we all get better together. Enjoy the show. Well, welcome into a very exciting episode of The Scene. I'm your host, Bubba Startz, and with me today is Bryan White from the Thriving Chronicles podcast. Welcome to the show, Bryan.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much.
Well, we haven't really communicated a whole lot. We just met, in a Facebook group that we're a part of. So why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your show?
Okay, good morning. Well, thank you for having me here first. My name is Bryan White. I am the host of the Thriving Chronicles podcast. The podcast that I host is all about transforming people's lives from merely surviving to absolute thriving. We dig into stories from all walks of life, all backgrounds, all spectrums of people overcoming, adapting, and conquering, and basically transitioning their lives from season to season to season and taking the lessons they've learned and upgrading their lives, turning their lives into places of thriving, places of their wildest dreams. We take the whole goal of what we do is to take stories that are turned into conversations, that are turned into tools, actions, and powerful forms for other people to resonate with and transform their lives. Because there's going to be somebody out there who resonates or connects with one of my stories, one of my guest stories that has walked through a similar season and wants to know how to take their life to a different level, wants to know how to get out of the mess they're in, who wants to have that bit of uplift and needs to understand that it's okay to be where you are, but there's so much more to life.
That's just incredible, Bryan. In the same vein, we have a program on our network called the Get Better Together Project. And with the same mission statement, you copied or I copied and pasted yours probably. I realized early on as I started this, it was mostly just to do music interviews. I'm a songwriter myself. I live in the middle of South Dakota, and we don't have a lot of press out here. So it just started as me talking to my friends, but in those conversations, right, even on a simple kind of not superficial, but a very, top level, it was like, man, we're really making this is more than just you introducing yourself and trying to gain fans. We were really sharing our stories and exactly what you just said. The stories turned into conversations, and then the conversations became more and more powerful, and then kind of led us down where I stopped calling myself I'm not no longer a songwriter, but I'm definitely a podcaster now. And whatever that means, right? I feel this is so important in the world and so life-changing for the whole planet, right?
It's incredibly life-changing, and it allows us to be able to connect with people across the world. I've now connected with people on the other side of the world, Australia, Germany. Then I've connected with people who were as close as just down the road from me. That was actually a really bizarre one. No idea, but it's incredible who we can connect with. And from, like I said, down the road to across the world.
Well, and the way that I've kind of explained it more recently, because the intuition it has come to me is that this is how God or creator or source is speaking, right? Like this is the consciousness, right? This is how it is embodying itself, is in these conversations and in these, these podcasts. And that's why having 4 million of them, it doesn't matter. We could have 4 billion and we would only cover half of the population or less of the planet. And we all have a story to share. And each story, exactly like you just said, is going to change someone's life. It's not, not every story is relatable to each person, but it is relatable to one person out there. And if that's the good that comes out of it, that's enough.
Then I've done my job. If I've been able to inspire, uplift, or help someone connect through a story we've shared, through a piece of education we've shared, or through just something that we've brought to our audience, then that's the whole purpose of what I've done. And at first, it really actually, from the beginning, it started out as me wanting to share my story and just connect with people. I had a real passion for people and being curious and wanting to hear other people's stories. And it's exploded into this community of people who want more from life, know that there's more, want to take their story and use it for a purpose to help people change their lives and connect that it's okay that we've gone through these things and life is going to happen. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. Stuff's going to happen to you, but it's how you walk through it, how you use it, and always recognize we can do more. We're meant for more. There's so much more out there.
Just simply incredible that, two men, two humans like us that didn't know each other before 3 days ago, are walking that same path, right? With the same understanding as well. It's not just kind of, I don't know, I take it from like Rogan and those guys, they're just getting stoned in the basement and using this new tool. And through the last 10 years of all of us consuming these things, and how it spread from his friends or from him to his friends, and now it just keeps spreading, that we're starting to realize exactly what you and I have, that this is actually how we change individual lives, because people just want to be heard or feel like they're heard or feel like they're not alone. And you do that by relating and by relationship. And I don't know that there's a better way to do that than this form of media. It's incredible.
Well, this form of media allows you to reach such a large span of people in such a large way across so many different platforms. You're no longer just confined to what used to just be the TV or the radio. You're now being able to spread a podcast that can go from thousands of platforms to the TV, to the radio, to reaching such a broad spectrum of people across the world from all walks of life, every language, every background, every area.
Well,
And
and not
the
just
cap
in the present moment, Bryan, but also that it's there. We're
yeah,
building an archive of these stories, right? That are going on the internet and will never, hopefully never go away. Where it's not like anybody's on the backside of the internet just erasing everything, right? Like all this stuff is going out there, and future humans will have access to this as well. These seeds that we're planting even today in this conversation will have reverberations for centuries, possibly into the future. That's an incredibly powerful thing to come at it with that awareness, instead of just having a silly podcast where you and your friends chit chat about superficial nonsense.
absolutely. Just on a comical side too. I think me and you can probably relate to this. If we kind of sometimes wish there was somebody going in the background erasing stuff. Because if we went back to our very first episodes, now that we've been doing this, I've gone through some of my first episodes and gone, oh boy, I have sure learned a lot.
But that's part of the process too, right? Is that
Oh
people
yeah.
can go back and watch you grow, and watch your guests grow, and that's the amazing thing. I mean, I didn't have this podcast. We haven't even been around for a year, right? I started it like back in, last April of 2024, and was just kind of doing it to get my feet under it. It became apparent right away that it was important. It was important to me, and it was important to my few artist friends that just want to be famous, right? They just want somebody else talking about them. Not that they have to be Luke Combs or something like that, but that they just wanted someone else talking about their art. So that's where the passion really came inside of me. And then as you keep kind of pulling on that thread, it's like, oh, this is part of something much larger than I could have ever fathomed.
Oh
Bryan,
yeah.
why don't we talk a little bit about your personal story and the podcast, and how long have you been doing the podcast now?
So it's very exciting that my podcast has only been alive for less than 90 days. We released our first episode October 27th.
You just
So
started.
we just started and it's
Amazing.
exploding. So it was a case of, and it still makes me laugh when I sit back at this. The podcast had been an idea, a structure in my mind, and a setup for a very long time. I had kind of done the background research. I kind of built the plan. I'd had all these layouts, but I had something holding me back. I just hadn't pulled the trigger on it yet. And finally, one day, I'm sitting down with a buddy of mine who also has a podcast, and he looked at me and went, Bryan, why haven't you done it? And it was something about those words. Why haven't you just done it? They kind of hit me like a ton of bricks. And I went, well, I don't know. I guess I should. And something just maybe it was the timing, the universe, whatever it was. And it clicked. And the next day I went, we're doing this. We're putting it together. We're putting all these notes and scribbles and ideas into action. And away we go. So it came to life. And it really comes from my background. Like I said, there are a little bit of one side is the being curious of people's stories, passions, and wanting to connect with other people, wanting to bring a bit of a light to the world through stories and communication. The other side came from my background of struggling with mental health and learning things the hard way. I've always been one of those people that kind of learns things the hard way, unfortunately. And I went through a period of time where I woke up and I looked in the mirror and I had no idea who was looking back. If anything, I really did not like the person looking back. And it was in that moment that I realized something had to change. I needed to know who was I was looking at. I needed to know who the person in the mirror was. What did I want? What did I feel? What did I stand for? What were my morals? What were my values? What was everything? Who was this person? And how do I like the person I'm seeing? So that sent me on a mission of years of deep diving into growth mindsets and personal development and learning about myself and learning about the world, learning about people, growing a heart of curiosity, a heart of passion to the man I've become today. I can honestly tell you that if I went back and looked at myself those years down the road to that person that was looking in the mirror, my life is a complete 180, completely different. The man that was there to the man that is today, two totally different people with two totally different lives.
Well, yeah,
So
like
it,
another planet, right? A different timeline, however you want to. I mean, I've experienced that just in the last, 12 to 6 months. And so, yeah, I feel you.
yeah, it really was a transformation and it took years, years and years of being willing to grow and learn, have mentors, become curious. And now I want to take everything I've been able to learn and everything I still learn. I will be a learner to the day I die. I believe truly, when you believe you know it all and that you decide to stop learning is your greatest mistake in life. So the greatest tool and power we have is to stay open and learn our entire lives. I will never know everything. I will never have all the answers. But what I do hope is that the small things that I think I know and the small things that I'm confident in and what I have experienced through my life might be able to help somebody else take their life from maybe they're having that day today where they wake up and they look in the mirror and go, who the hell is this guy?
I have had those moments. A little bit about me, Bryan. 10 years ago, I was, well, not quite yet, but 9.5 years ago, I was in Mexico on the run from felonies that were eventually going to land me in prison. I was a different timeline. I was a different man. Um, and it was a long time. I mean, I had to walk those 9 years to get to last year where I finally, woke up. After I got out of prison, I learned how to weld in there and changed my life, right? I came out and I wasn't the drug addict anymore that I used to be. And I went to work that regular job and working in a factory, but that wasn't me either. Right. During that course, I started drinking again and feeding those addictions. I was 240 pounds. And I was just like, who are you? And what is this life like? This isn't tenable. This isn't tenable for another. How could you do this for another 2 years, much less another 20 or 30 or 40? Like it just doesn't, it's not computing. And I had to make a choice, right? And honestly, last February, I thought I was quitting my job to be a rock star, Bryan. I thought the music career was the thing that was taking off. I was on the local news. I was gaining a little more local celebrity. The band was booking some more gigs and things. And then this happened. More specifically, this happened. A friend of mine who I went on his podcast and just as a guest to talk about my new song and different things, he gave me this Zoom P4, and now I could record all of these brilliant conversations that I'm having with all of these amazing people that I know. And it really just it started to snowball. And now that snowball is the size of a small planet, right? And you're like, what? I don't even know what I'm doing. How could I be here? Go ahead, Bryan. Why don't you share a little bit of your personal story, kind of where you're from? And my heater just kicked on in my garage, so I'm going to dip and turn it off so we don't hear the audio.
Sounds good. So for everybody out there, my name is Bryan White. I'm from Alberta, Canada, and I am 35 years old. I am a father of three beautiful daughters. I have my wife. I've got two fur babies, one very large one small, annoying little thing. And my day job, I work in the agricultural development sector. I work for a feed manufacturer who we are revolutionizing the feed industry and how things are done there. It's some really exciting stuff that has me really stoked about even my own day job. But other than that, I'm just a lifelong learner who has a passion to connect with people, to change people's lives and see where life takes me. I'm on this journey of life and I'm excited. I have no other way to explain this to people, but, and I shared a post about it at the beginning of the year here, that I think it's a weird word to say, but fired up. I'm a person on fire right now. Things are happening from the podcast to my personal life to the world around us. Let's all just be a little more excited and increase our frequency and see where life takes us.
That's so incredible. So I was going to complain about the cold, but since you're in Alberta, I think I'll save. I'm from South Dakota. We're out here in farm country, agriculture based. My father-in-law farms about 1,000 acres out here, corn and soybeans mostly, but the hemp industry is growing down here in South Dakota,
Yep.
mostly because of the hemp industry in Canada. That's where a lot of our people down here were working with people, I'm pretty sure in Alberta, that they were getting their seed from. You guys are just north of us. I got to go through
Yep.
the state of North Dakota, but up and through there. So a lot of similarities in our surroundings. And for me is I'm 90 minutes from a major not even a major metro area. Sioux Falls is still rather small in the on the scale of things. A couple 100,000 people is all. This is the only option I have to communicate with like-minded individuals, right? Like I know everyone in my town, and not that I don't like them and love them and want to communicate with them. There's something much larger out there. There's 8 billion other people on this planet that I could be gaining knowledge from, like you yourself. And then sharing a little bit of me with you. It's already changed both of our lives in the 20 minutes we've been talking. And then when we turn that into now we get to share this with other people out there, it's just, I'm blown away. Like you said, on fire, fired up. Yeah, buddy, every day. That's what gets me out of bed at 5 a.m. And I'm in the process of writing a book right now, Bryan. And it is all about getting people off of the sidelines and getting behind a microphone and building that confidence. But the first 2 parts of the book are literally, who are you? Who are you inside? Before you start thinking that you can get behind a microphone and telling other people who they are or what you think or what your truth is, you need to go inside and you need to figure out who that is inside of you. Now, for me, 2 years in prison will do that to a man, right? You'll start to examine your life and the choices that you've made, and then to continue to, for me, it's kind of been like, okay, well, you got out of prison and off parole, and I reverted, right? I kind of slid back into that person that I was, and it took that awareness again to go, hey, buddy, you've been down that road. Time to check it. Time to come out. And
Yep.
now what my podcast, and I have like four podcasts, right? It quickly became like my brain goes too many directions for fans of one show to follow. But that this is my accountability, right? This is being this forward facing, and I've been a musician my whole life, so I've always been on stage. But once you step off that stage, you can go back to be whoever the hell you were before, right? So what the podcasting has brought me is that not just to other people, but a personal accountability. The fact that everyone, and especially you have kids, my kids, I'm leaving a legacy for my children to go back. And I can't have these conversations necessarily with my children as they're 8 and 9, 12 years old. But as they grow into adulthood, that they're going to be able to go back and to know exactly the man that their father was and is. And that to me is probably the most important thing that keeps me going right now.
Let's not get me started on the rampage, I'll call it, of leading by example and my theories of stepping up as fathers. There's a whole episode right there about my beliefs around fatherhood and being the leaders of the family. I wrote an article a little while ago I called it the Becoming the CEO of Your Own Life. And it was really all about showing up, leading, setting yourself by example, and transforming your life into an aspect of powerful standards, values, and treating it like a business almost, like you were the CEO of your own life. And as you were saying, it's funny how a lot of us podcasters, we go from getting on here and talking to writing books. I have a book in progress myself that I'm trying to get finished, but I kind of laugh a lot of us podcasters. I know a handful of us now that we get talking about podcasts and all of a sudden it comes up. And from podcasting, we go into, and I started writing a book about whatever it is we're doing. So I love the aspect of the creativity outlet this gives us as well.
Well, and that's why I kind of, not to get overly religious or theological about things, but this is coming from somewhere. This is an expression of that center of the universe, of source, of God, of whatever word you want to use to describe it. I feel it. When I wake up every day, that's that fire inside, right? That is driving me forward. And it's at this point, it's my duty to express that in the ways that it wants to be expressed, whether that is the spoken word like we do here, whether it's a song, right? I have always been expressing that, and it's always been a part of me. I thought it was me, right? It turns out it's something much, much bigger. And then sometimes it gives you that those words need to be written and they need to be shared in all of these forums. And yeah, it's just part of the process almost, right? Where yeah, when you start becoming a broadcast antenna for that, like you're not just receiving the information anymore, but you're able to now express that. It changes who you are, and it changes kind of on its own scale. I don't know that every podcaster will write a book someday, but there's definitely some of us that are called to it. And it's like a thread on a sweater, right? You just keep pulling it, like the old Weezer song.
You just keep going. Yeah.
Incredible, Bryan. Well, I have a feeling that we are going to be doing a lot of work together in the future. So I don't want to take up too much more of your time today. I do want to give you a chance to go ahead and plug all of your stuff and tell people where they can find you.
Awesome. Well, if everybody wants to take a moment and they want to dive into the Thriving Chronicles podcast, our community Facebook page is a great place to start. From there, it's across all major streaming platforms, Spotify, Apple, Google Play, all the different streaming options out there, YouTube, our Instagram page, our TikTok page. content, videos, everything gets spread across basically everywhere that if you look up the Thriving Chronicles podcast, you'll find us.
Incredible, Bryan. Well, thank you so much for being a part of the scene.
Well, thank you so much for having me here, and I'm excited for us to collaborate some more and see what roads it takes us down.
Thanks for tuning in to the Scene Projects Podcast Network. We appreciate you listening. You can find more at thesceneprojects.com. Join our community.
Got an ocean full of love that's made for two. We sail upon the ocean breeze and sunshine.